obviously it needs to be good. So, and stay tuned to know more about the online free workshop, Engineering Qualification Validation, that's coming up. I'm going to do that towards the end of this live session. I'm going to give more details. So let's get started. So this is probably one of the most daunting and scariest email you could get from Engineers Australia. After you have gone a long way up to this moment, usually the communication from Engineers Australia is via email. So you've done a lot of things. You've decided that you wanted to validate your qualification. That's a big decision. You read in numerous times the booklet, the Migration Skills Assessment booklet from Engineers Australia. You've researched everything about how to prepare your CDR and how to write your career episodes and summary statement. You spent hours organizing your documents. You translated all documents necessary for your application. You studied really hard to get your minimum English test scores. You've written thousands of words for your 3 career episodes as well. You invested a lot of time to match the competencies and prepared your summary statement. And you worked really hard. You sacrificed your leisure time. You didn't go to the nights out. You didn't go to have some beer and drinks. And all of this to save money to pay for all expenses associated with the process. And then after weeks of having applied for your CDR with Engineers Australia, a notification comes in your email inbox from Engineers Australia. And when you open it, it's not what you were really expecting. You are ready to celebrate your approval, but instead you get an email saying something like, this career episode does not demonstrate your competency as a civil engineer or mechanical engineer or a chemical engineer, whatever category of engineer that you applied. So you read that in disbelief, you lose your ground and simply don't know what happened and what to do next. So that's probably the feeling that you may have. So I'll cover a few of the most common reasons why you may get this sort of a horrible email from Engineers Australia. Those ones that already received this email, it's certainly not pleasant, because you think that you did everything right, and then you get that email. But the good news is that those sort of feedbacks, they're not the end of the world. And Engineers Australia, they're very good in providing you feedback so you can't complete your application. And I've seen many cases that engineers, they got this feedback and they just did what Engineers Australia asked them to do, and they were all right. They managed to get them approved. So some of the reasons why you may have negative feedback. The first of them, you may have not properly addressed each competency element. So with that, perhaps the content was not relevant. The content of your career episode was not relevant. Perhaps you did not read carefully the competency elements. It's really important that you read the competency elements in the Migration Skills Assessment booklet, so you know really what you need to address. Obviously those elements, competency elements, sometimes they're not very easy to understand. However, you need to read them and try to understand as best as you can. And you may have relevant content in your career episode, but perhaps the content was relevant, but when you were preparing your summary statement, you didn't really address properly all those competencies that you've written in your career episodes. You couldn't really address properly in the summary statement. Another reason why you may have you may get a negative feedback is that you may have not focused how you used your engineering skills and knowledge on engineering activities that are considered valid by Engineers Australia. So you got to remember that Engineers Australia will have a look at the NZ SEO occupation definition, and those definitions are the ones that they consider that professional engineers will do here in Australia, obviously in your particular field. If you're a civil engineer, for example, you need to go to NZ SEO occupation definition for civil engineers and read what Engineers Australia will consider to be equivalent to a civil or professional civil engineer here in Australia. So that's certainly a very good hint. Another reason why you may have not focused how you use your engineering skills is that you had a good engineering project, but perhaps you chose a wrong experience within that project. And that can happen easily, especially if the project is a larger project where you may have had a lot of experiences within that project. But when you chose the experience to write in your career episodes, because sometimes the project is so large that it's not worthwhile writing about the whole project. So you probably chose an experience that's not so good within that project. Or even you've chosen a wrong project. You may have had a lot of projects and perhaps you chose a wrong project, and that's why you couldn't really focus on your engineering ability. Obviously, the other reason is you did not match your experience with the NZ SEO occupation definition. So that's in the last live session I said that that's a critical mistake, even fatal mistake. If you choose your experience that's not matching with the NZ SEO occupation definition, it is most likely that Engineers Australia will not accept your career episode. Another reason why you may have some negative feedback, you may have used too much project management or construction management experiences. A lot of engineers, they ended up after graduation, they ended up becoming more project managers than engineers, and because of that, and because they probably didn't read carefully the definition of engineer here in Australia, they ended up using a lot of those project management or construction management experiences. So Engineers Australia will probably send you a negative feedback on that as well. Another reason why you may have some negative feedback, you may have forgotten to provide a copy of your academic report, especially if you're writing about your academic work. If you haven't worked, or if your work was not related to an engineering activity here in Australia, perhaps you used your academic experience and you forgot to provide a copy of your academic report. And why did that happen? Perhaps you did not have access anymore to the original report. Or perhaps you have engaged a company to do it for you, and that's why you don't have the report. And that's very common. Some people, they get desperate. They ended up engaging companies to write their CDR on their behalf. And obviously, because the candidate didn't write themselves, they don't have copies of the report. Another reason why could be that you may have forgotten to include engineering evidences of your work, such as tables, diagrams, pictures, etc., and to further demonstrate your competency as a professional engineer. So that's also fairly common. And why those could happen? Perhaps you just forgot about it. The booklet, or the new booklet, says that you need to provide those evidences. If you have it, great. You can just then include those evidences, tables, diagrams, pictures, photos that you took, and then you properly reference, and then you'll be all right. But perhaps you didn't have access anymore to those tables, diagrams, and pictures. If you don't have access, well, then it's going to be difficult for you to reply to Engineers Australia. Or even worse, perhaps you have engaged somebody, another company, like I said before, to do it, the CDR for you, and that's why you don't have those tables, diagrams, and pictures, because you didn't do it. You paid somebody to write for you, and then you don't have access to those attachments. So these are some of the reasons why Engineers Australia may send negative feedback to applicants, and I'm going to talk about what should you do to avoid getting those emails, or to improve your chances of not receiving those emails. But as I promised, I'll talk about my online free workshop, Engineering Qualification Validation, here in Australia, and it will happen next month in October. And I set up already the opening date for the event. The opening live webinar will be on the Sunday, the 4th of October at 10 a.m. in the morning here in Brisbane time. So Sunday, 4th of October, 10 a.m. Brisbane time. In Brazil is going to be Saturday, the 3rd of October, 9 p.m. Brasilia time. And obviously there will be other countries that my audience are in, Colombia and Mexico and India. You just need to convert the time. And to register, please access the link that I put in the video description in YouTube and Facebook. I'm probably going to copy and paste now as well. And those ones watching on Instagram, if you go to my bio, there is a link, linktree/JersonIda. When you click on that link, it will open up a box with a few buttons, and the first button to the top is where you can register yourself for free in this online workshop. And I'm just going to copy and paste in YouTube, so those ones in YouTube can have a look. And also I'm going to place in Facebook. All right. And once I have the other dates, I will be sending an email with the dates. Usually the workshop, well, probably going to talk about the workshop next Sunday, because it's just going to be 1 week before the beginning of the workshop, and then I will give more details what's going to happen, and the subjects that I'm going to be covering during the workshop, and how everything is going to work. And now, what you should do to improve your chances of not receiving those negative feedbacks from Engineers Australia. Well, first, you gotta read carefully the 16 competencies and use strong examples focusing on your engineering knowledge application. So those 16 competencies, I believe that they are from page 30 or 31 in the booklet. There is a very detailed description of each of the 16 competencies, and unfortunately they're not the easiest things to understand, but you gotta put an effort and read carefully, so you try to understand very well what's Engineers Australia is asking for you. Another strategy or things that you could do to perhaps prevent receiving those feedbacks is to limit the use of project management or construction management experiences. There are certain competencies that you can explore these project management or construction management experiences, but do not focus on those in your career episodes solely or entirely. Some engineers, they talk about the whole career episode about the 10 areas of project management, and they ended up in trouble, because remember that you are applying to recognize your engineering qualification, not your project management or construction management qualification. Engineers Australia is interested to recognize your engineering qualification verifying your engineering skills and abilities. So please pay attention when you're writing about your project management or construction management experience. Another thing that you could do, perhaps, make sure that you read with attention the NZ SEO occupation definition related to your application and your experience that you're writing about your career episode. So you got to make sure that the experience that you write in your career episode, it does match with the definition of NZ SEO occupation definition. And assuming that the experience that you had in your country is the same that Engineers Australia accepts here in Australia, is another common mistake. A lot of engineers, they write their career episodes assuming that what they used to do in their home country is the same that engineers they do here in Australia, and it can be a critical mistake. In many types of engineering, what you used to do in your home country is not what engineers they do here in Australia. So please make sure that you read the definition, and when you choose your experience, you choose an experience that matches with that definition. Another strategy or thing that you could do is when you choose an academic experience. So if you chose an experience that you did at university, check if you still have access to the academic report, as you are most likely going to be asked to send it as an evidence of your academic work. So the feedbacks and the people that I talked to, when they wrote about their academic experience, Engineers Australia always asked them to send a copy of their report in the original format. So you don't need to translate everything. Perhaps you just need to translate the executive summary, but Engineers Australia wants to see the report as an evidence that you did that report. So if you don't have access anymore to the report in the original format, check if you can get a reference letter from your former professor or the course coordinator in your university. Because if you don't have the report, this could replace the original academic report. It's not guaranteed, but it worked in some cases. And also check if you still can get tables, diagrams, pictures, formulas, photos that you created or that you took, so you can reference them as evidence of your work. If they were from a technical standard, for example, you can still reference them, but don't forget to reference them with the source where they came from and give them the proper credit. If you fail to give proper credit of those pictures or diagrams or tables, Engineers Australia may interpret that you're trying to mislead them and to use someone else's work as being yours, and this could characterize plagiarism, and you could be banned for up to 36 months. So just be careful with that. And certainly avoid at any cost to engage companies that provide CDR writing services. It is most certain that Engineers Australia will catch you, and this is an unethical behavior when you engage somebody to write on your behalf, and you can be banned for up to 36 months, as I said before. So even those companies, they're probably going to promise you that they give you a plagiarism-free report. If you did not write the report yourself, or even if you ask a translator to translate to English from your mother language to English, this all characterize plagiarism, and you'll be in a deep trouble. Engineers Australia will catch you, and you will be banned for up to 36 months, and which means that for that period of time you are unable to apply again, and that can delay a lot of plans for you. And obviously you're starting with not a very good start your engineering life here in Australia. And at the end of the day, the process is not complex. I keep saying this to a lot of people. The process is simple. it's not complex. It's a step-by-step. If you follow the booklet, you will get there. But I didn't say that it is easy. So people would say, yeah, Gerson, but it's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy. But it's not complex. It's simple. If you follow the steps, you will get it. But it requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of discipline and determination. But the risk of being banned for up to 3 years and put your migration objectives at risk, it's not worthwhile. Even though it's difficult, because you have to write a lot of things, you gotta match competencies, you gotta organize your CPD, your career episodes, your summary statement, your reference letters, CVs, and everything. But if you dedicate a little bit of time and if you do the right thing, you will get it. So well guys, these are some of the reasons why you may get a negative feedback from Engineers Australia, and also I shared with you what you should do to improve your chances in avoiding these negative feedbacks. And already there half an hour, and I apologize for the issue with the microphone. I'll have a look and see what happened here. But I hope the information was useful for you and that it can help you in your validation journey. And please don't forget to register to the free online qualification validation workshop that is starting on the 4th of October at 10 a.m. Brisbane time. So it's going to be Sunday. It's going to be a live webinar for those ones that are registered. I'm going to send by email the link to access the webinar room. So just make sure that you create contact with my name and my email address, admin@engineersinaustralia.com, because if you don't do that, perhaps the email is going to your junk mailbox and you will never get the link to participate in the workshop. And I'm pretty sure that after the workshop, that is going to run for like 7 days, you will understand the whole process and will be able to start your validation process. I'm just going to check if I have any particular questions. If I don't have any questions, I will probably finish. No, don't have any questions there. Yeah. So I'd like to thank you very much for your participation, and I'll see you again next Sunday here on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at 8:30 p.m. Brisbane time, and I'll be talking about the free online workshop as well. See you then. Bye bye.